Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
All right, we are back here, joined once again by Stephanie Carson. Excited to have her live on the podcast and the Zoom cast. And she's a licensed marriage and family therapist and so much more. She's a trained practitioner and a whole bunch of different areas, which we're going to get to today. Stephanie, please introduce yourself to everyone.
Yes. Well, hello. My name is Stephanie. And as you mentioned, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I've been in practice with that since about 1998. And since around 2017, I started doing more work on the holistic side. And so I'm also a certified NET practitioner, which we talked about last time. That's the neuro-emotional technique, which I love dearly. And today we'll be talking more about EFT, which is otherwise known as tapping, and it stands for the emotional freedom techniques. So I do a lot of holistic work in my practice, in addition to just working with couples, families, individuals on basic life stressors, issues, traumas, the whole gamut. So
yay. So EFT, one more time, it stands for
emotional freedom techniques.
What is it?
Not to be confused. So there's two EFTs out there. This is the fun
gosh.
part. There's another one that's called emotionally focused therapy, and that's for couples. And that's a specific style of therapy that therapists use. The one we're going to be talking about today is emotional freedom techniques. And that is a holistic technique that, while many clinicians use it, it's across the board. So practitioners can be trained. In fact, it started, and I'll get into that in just a little bit. It started with someone who had a background in, I believe it was engineering. So not even something remotely close to clinical work, but we've seen amazing progress with it. And so that's what we'll be talking about today, and how that can help people just deal with life stress, anxiety, and so much more.
Oh, great. Well, this sounds exciting. Yeah, let's talk about the benefits and what it could help with. Stress and anxiety. I'm with you.
Sign me up, right? So the common word that we hear is tapping, or sometimes people will reference it as EFT tapping. And really all that's talking about is the technique itself involves tapping or the manual stimulation of different acupoints on our body, specifically the upper torso area. So our face and the upper part of our body.
Okay.
And the idea behind it is we're actually using the meridian system. So we're using points along the meridian system, which has been well known for years in Chinese medicine. I mean, that dates back to, I think it's the BC era with acupuncture. And so it came from, I think it was around the 1970s. There were a few doctors that had noticed when they were combining verbal processing or mentioning of something that was a stressor, a problem, with stimulating those acupressure points or those acupoints, they were seeing symptom relief. Their patients were feeling better.
Yeah.
And so fast forward, one of those doctors was Dr. Callahan. So fast forward 2 years later, about in the 1990s, Gary Craig, who happened to be one of Callahan's students, put together a more simplified version, and that's where EFT was born. And so what it allows us to do is tap on the points, and I'll introduce you to those in just a minute, but it taps on the points while we're focusing on a problem to help actually eliminate whatever that stressor might be in the body.
All right. Wow.
Are you intrigued yet?
Yes, I am. I mean, I'm willing to explore and play too along, whatever needs to be done. But for real,
yes. Well, and actually, one of the things it's also used for is pain. So I'm curious because I know our last time. How's your wrist?
I went to the doctor this morning for the nerve test to see if it's carpal tunnel, and it's not. So again, I don't have numbing and tingling. I have this. So the good news is it's not as worse as it could be, not as severe, I should say. But then it's the arthritis, the tendonitis, and it's the continual motion of, the mouse pad, the buttons on the board, the holding the cell phone. That's basically my computer is the cell phone, because you hold like this all day. That's an issue. And I got the back figured out with the ergonomic chair, but it's overusage. So I'm like 10 physical therapy sessions in. He wrote me a script for more. And for right now, I have to try to stop using the hand, which you just reminded me I didn't. I put that on like this. I have to but it's overusage and that can lead to damage. So I'm not
Yes.
feeling much better, but
Yeah.
thank you
So
for
definitely,
asking.
exactly, right. Like we talked about last
The
time,
emotional
definitely there's
connection. If
physical, right. I mean, there's physical stuff. And like you said, you don't want to do more damage there physically.
Mhm.
But emotionally speaking, how did you feel after we did that fast technique
That's
last
right. We did it
week?
last week. It
We
was
did do
good.
it last week.
And if I could only stop and think like that and do like that with the
That's the hard part. So that is, you know what, that's the number one thing that clients, and I'll be honest, myself as well, struggle with is these holistic
Mhm.
techniques are wonderful ways of people, of clients taking control of their health journey. But the
Yeah.
reality is sometimes it's just hard to
Hard
remember
to,
to do
yeah.
it.
Yeah. Oh my
So
gosh. It's so true. It really is.
yeah, and part of it, actually, let me back up a little bit. One of the things that kind of that alludes to is just when our brains are stressed. And so Daniel Siegel, who's a famous psychiatrist, he came up with what's called the hand model of the brain.
Yeah.
And so it's a really good example of why when we're emotionally triggered for whatever the reason might be, we can't think properly, right? I
Yeah.
mean, how many times do we get upset about something, or you're in a fight with someone, or someone cuts you off on the freeway and it's like this this rage? You must have had that happen today, Jill. Your whole demeanor changed.
Oh no, it just happens a lot. Road rage and people, I
It
just don't get it.
does.
Yep. Hmm.
It does. And so if you think of the brain with your hand, you fold your thumb in across the
Hmm.
base of the palm, and then you curl those four fingers over. So the base of your wrist is the brainstem. The thumb represents our limbic system, specifically our amygdala, and that's where our emotional center is of our brain. And with the amygdala, that's where trauma is housed.
Okay.
And then when we fold over those four fingers and we cover it, that's our cortex, and our prefrontal cortex is the front of the fingers. That's our thinking center, the thought center
Hmm.
of the brain. So when we are emotionally triggered, what happens is this starts to kind of like flare up. And then all of a sudden, those four fingers, which is that thought
Hmm.
center, just as Daniel Siegel calls it, you flip your lid.
Literally. Yep.
And literally, you do. And I usually do the whole thing, including disengaging the amygdala, but he taught it just this way. Either way is fine. I'm more of a visual person, so I like seeing it this way
Hmm.
because it reminds us that until we address that emotional center, whatever those emotions might be, we cannot re-engage our brains. So in this case, it is literally impossible to think. We cannot, because our brain is discombobulated. So the first thing we have to do is acknowledge and soothe that emotional center so that the rest of the brain can come re-engage, and then we can have a thought process. So
Hmm.
that's why I tell clients to, especially when I'm working with couples, if you have one that's flared out, they flip their lid, and the other one's trying to regulate by telling them how irrational they're being, or it's not a big deal, all it does is further aggravate that limbic system. The person is like, no, you're not hearing me. And it's not until they can maybe see whether it's a, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. I can see that you're really hurt. You're really frustrated. It's not until that gets addressed that brain can re-engage, and then you can have a conversation. Our
Hmm.
children, same thing. We can't talk to our children when they're flying off the handle because they need something, that part of the brain that really needs to be soothed. And so that's what EFT can help us do. It allows us to work through, just by using those acupoints, it allows us to work through those different emotions that can create stress, that can create pain, that are connected to trauma, that get in the way of us losing weight, that make us have a hard time sleeping. There's so many
Yeah.
things that we're able to do with the emotional freedom techniques.
Awesome. Wow. I love it. I love it. I love it. And remind us how we reach you. I don't even know if we
Absolutely.
established that. Wait.
That's okay. We didn't at the beginning, but it's
Yep.
okay. So
I always like to.
So,
Yes.
yep, that's okay. The good place to start is always the website, and that is holistictherapyandwellness.com. And that is holistic with a W, because I really do try to focus on the whole person in my practice. Or phone number is 909-364-1104. Or there's always email, and that's stephmft@verizon.net.
Awesome. What else do we need to know about, of course, EFT
EFT.
and the other modalities?
Yeah. So with tapping, there's actually two main ways that we see it done. The main way that most people have seen it is through self-tapping. So it's self-care. And yeah, you
I
already
don't
know
know where, but I've
kind of tapping all over the points, right?
I
Yeah.
don't really know, but yes.
It's okay. It's okay. So when people self-tap, that's really good for in the moment stressors and
Okay.
helping to re-regulate the body, bring us down to a state of calm. The second form that not everyone is aware of, but is really, really, really starting to take off more, and we're starting to have more and more research support it, is practitioner assisted, or what we often call clinical EFT. And that's when you work one-on-one with a practitioner who's been trained and hopefully certified and accredited, because there are different levels. And it's actually a very rigorous training, which I love, because it really makes sure that practitioners are able to deal with whatever might come up. We're not miracle workers and we can't foresee the future. So sometimes we do get taken off guard, but it's important that practitioners, when working with someone one-on-one, that we have the ability to understand where we might go and how to contain something if we accidentally trigger a trauma. So with practitioner assisted EFT, we're able to set goals, work towards things. So maybe you have to get on a plane in a couple of weeks and you're terrified of flying. So that can become a goal where we specifically work on reducing that fear so that you can have an enjoyable flight. Or maybe you have a wedding at the end of the summer and you want to lose 10 pounds. And so we can set that as a goal and we can work with you. And when you're working with a practitioner, the beauty behind that is we have the ability to kind of go wherever your body is leading us. When people do their own tapping, we don't want you to, it's called daisy chaining. We don't want you to go off and go, oh, now I'm angry, so let me tap on that. Oh, now I'm sad, let me tap on that. Oh, now I'm thinking about this, let me tap on that. We don't want you to do that because we don't want you to accidentally get yourself into a hole you can't get out of.
Never heard of that. Daisy, Daisy what?
It's called daisy chaining.
Okay.
But when you work with a practitioner, you can do that. So you might start off thinking, I'm going to work on my phobia of flying, and all of a sudden mom comes up, and now you're dealing with a trauma with mom where you felt completely out of control when you were 5 years old. Well, our logical brain is going to say, how on earth is that connected?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, emotionally, it absolutely is, because now you're looking at two things where maybe there's a safety issue and you feel out of control and you can't do anything to change the trajectory or the direction of where you're going. So it's really cool to watch what this technique can actually bring up and help people to work through. And the best part about this technique is it is able to be done on the phone, over Zoom or teletherapy, or in person. Amazing. And so it's amazing because it's fluid. It's so fun. And we have people throughout. EFT International is one of the global organizations that has been developed for the advancement and really kind of the professional maintenance, making sure everyone stays really well trained and is doing what they need to do to keep it a safe practice. But so we have people all over the world. Australia, in Europe, everywhere. And it's amazing.
I love hearing the client experiences and stories. Could you share some of the things you've worked on with people on and how it's helped them? Thanks.
So things such as relationship issues, breakups, grief and loss issues, phobias, binge eating, cravings. I have not personally worked yet with addiction, but I do know some people that are able to work with that. And sometimes we do it for goal setting or trying to deal with empowerment, business people who are trying to maybe start up their own business, self-confidence issues, self-esteem issues, anxiety. So, and like I said, watching the transformation of, I was terrified about such and such at the beginning of this, and 5 sessions later, maybe it's like, please do not put a snake near me, but I'm going to the desert and I know I'm going to see a snake. And so we'll work on that. And then on the last session, they're like, okay, I think I'm good to go. I can see a picture of a snake. I can look at a real snake. Maybe I'm not ready to pet the snake, but that's okay. Because when you're in the desert, I wouldn't encourage that anyway. But we can get people to that place where they now feel confident in their ability to do whatever it is that they're trying to do. And so we work with them to set those goals. And we see clients that just come alive with excitement and eagerness to move forward in life when maybe everything else has failed them up until that point. So I know myself, I worked on it when I was pregnant with my daughter. I could not sleep, which is a very common symptom for women when we're pregnant. And I think I mentioned this before where I wanted to kill my husband in his sleep because he's laying next to me and he's snoring and he's getting a great night's sleep. And I'm looking at him going, this is not fair. I'm pregnant, I'm uncomfortable, and I just want to sleep. And there was nothing I could do, but I could feel the emotion building up in me, which just exacerbates the problem. So I actually did self-directed tapping on just my inability, my struggle with sleeping. And it helped relieve I didn't realize how much stress and anxiety was locked in there. And it helped me to feel better. And even though there were some nights where I just couldn't sleep just because physically I was uncomfortable, I felt emotionally more stable. And my husband got to sleep another night. And that was a good thing for him.
Yes. Uninterrupted sleep. It must feel good as a man, right?
I know.
That's great.
So I'll let you know, I'll show you what the points are. And depending on, we might not have time to do it today, but maybe next time we can play around a little bit with the tapping and give you an example of what it looks like. But we have the main points are, like I said, on the face and in the upper body. And so the first point we use is actually the side of the hand.
Okay.
And that is where we do what's called a setup statement. So for example, if maybe I'll use my sleeping one, I could not sleep. It didn't matter what was happening. And so maybe, and I still struggle with sleep, honestly. So if I wanted to last night, not necessarily the best night's sleep. So I could actually do a setup statement, something like, even though I'm frustrated and I feel it in my stomach because I couldn't sleep last night. I was tossing and turning all night long. I could hear my husband snoring. I just wanted to go to sleep. And no matter what I did, I couldn't fall asleep. And then we combine it with some form of self-acceptance. So I would say, I deeply and completely accept myself. Sometimes people aren't ready for that. Yeah. And so we can adjust it to, I'm open to the possibility of. And that allows for the space of where we are. And that's the nice thing about these holistic techniques is it really allows us to meet clients where they are.
Yeah.
So the side of the hand is our setup statement, and we do that side 3 times. And the motion of tapping is a constant tap. And it's not, you're not slamming. You're just kind of, it's a nice, feel good. Yeah. I've had clients before. They're like, myself. Yeah, you don't want to bruise yourself. The bruising is not part of the treatment protocol. And from that point, then we move and we tap on the points on the body. So it's the top of the head, which is kind of on the crown. We go to the inside of the eyebrows, which is really right where the eyebrow meets the skin area. And you'll almost feel kind of in the area, this little bit of an indentation. And that's kind of that point there. Then it's on the outside of the eyes, which is kind of about the temple area, but you want to be gentle when you're tapping because some people who are really sensitive to pressure, you don't want to, again, be banging on your forehead or on this temple area. Then it's under the eyes, kind of right underneath that bone area. Exactly where you are. So you're not poking your eyeballs out. We don't want to make you blind in this. Under the nose, under the mouth. So in that groove area, kind of at the chin. The collarbone, and it's not on the collarbone, it's dropping right underneath that collarbone, like about an inch or 2 under. And then under the arms. And we tell people sometimes you can hug yourself and it's about 4 inches under the arms, or some people will do it this way. Now, some tapping practitioners will just do one side of the body. And so you'll see people just doing it this way.
Okay.
I like doing both, but it really is practitioner and client preference. So sometimes, usually what will happen, especially if you're doing it where it's practitioner assisted, if client wants to just do one side, we'll just do one side. Okay. I like doing both because just energetically speaking, we never know where things might be. And so I don't want to leave anything out. But research has shown one side is just as effective as both. So it's really more about preference. All right, and so what we do with this is we're moving energy, the stuck points, out of the body. And that's why we focus on the negative. Sometimes people are like, why do you tap on the negative? Why wouldn't you be just doing, I feel amazing, I feel wonderful? Because you don't.
You still have that there. You got to get rid of it, right? It's like
Right,
trapped.
exactly.
Totally, yeah.
Exactly. And so as we're tapping on those points, what it's doing is we're combining that with the stressor, with the event, and that with the tapping allows it to be released.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
Ew, interesting. All right, give me
I know.
another. I mean, okay, so this is, by the way, how did you learn all this? I mean, for new listeners, I mean, how are you
Uh-huh.
certified? Just explain that part because it's like,
Absolutely. So I was introduced to it years ago when I was pregnant with my daughter. As I was going through childbirth preparation, the person who was teaching the class was certified in EFT. And so she's the one who introduced me to it. And so I started learning. I took a few classes back then, and that was in 2011, and learned a lot, used it with clients, loved it. I mean, I remember there were a few that sometimes as they were tapping, they would just start laughing hysterically. And they're like, it doesn't bother me anymore. This is amazing. So it was always beautiful to see. And then as years kind of passed, I honestly forgot that I knew how to do it. I forgot that I was even trained in it. And so it wasn't until after COVID or when COVID hit, I went back to trying to get creative because for a while we were just doing teletherapy. All of our offices got shut down. And so I started it again, and it's changed in the last 10, 15 years, which is wonderful because now we have even more techniques attached to what was the original longer version. And so now I'm actually in the process of, I'm probably a few months shy. I'm hoping to be certified by the end of this year. It's an amazing certification process where I'm working with the EFT Tapping Training Institute, and they are amazing with just mentoring us, giving us the support we need. It's really like taking college courses all over again. And I love that because they want to make sure if we're working with clients that we know what we're doing. And there really is an amazing process for those that decide to go through certification and accreditation. So people can absolutely get online. There's programs out there. There's a lot of them. It just depends on what fits for you. But for me, the EFT Tapping Training Institute is really good because they have live instruction. It's not just videos. And then they have live mentorship, which I really appreciate. You know, over the years, I think we get trained in a lot of different things. And sometimes there's just not the support you need to make sure you feel confident in the skill set. And when we're working with people, we really want to make sure that we know what we're doing and we're comfortable and we're trauma informed, meaning we're not going to just kind of go right in for it. We really need to be cautious. We need to let clients lead the way. It needs to be their goals because at the end of the day, it's their life and they need to feel safe with whatever it is they're choosing to have for their journey.
oh, beautifully said. All right, we still got 2 minutes left of the show, Stephanie. What else did you want to add for today?
I think what I would encourage people to do is, especially if you're interested in the holistic techniques, get online. You can get some introduction. There's a lot of different apps out there. There's YouTube videos out there. Now, again, those are for purposes of self-tapping. So the warning is always, please, please, please don't start tapping on trauma. That is something I work with in my office, and we do have beautiful techniques through the EFT protocol that help with trauma, but we do not encourage individuals to self-tap on those things. If you're having stress about something at work or an issue with something at home that's not connected to a trauma, that's just maybe basic stress and anxiety, or maybe you're struggling with losing weight, those are things you can absolutely self-tap on. And I have a lot of clients that I'll tell, get online and find a script that you enjoy. I'll give scripts to people, but sometimes people like hearing someone else's voice. They don't want to just take themselves through it. There's tapping groups out there where you can do self-tapping because there's often a benefit of if you're tapping along with someone, it's called borrowing benefits. And even though you might not be dealing with whatever their issue is, just by the mere fact that you're tapping along with them, if you've kind of identified an issue you have ahead of time, you can set it aside and then check back in after you've done the tapping with someone else or as part of a group. And more often than not, people are like, wait a minute, for me, that was like a 7 on that 10-point scale. And now it's a 4. What happened? Well, you borrowed benefits just from tapping.
Well, we all want to feel better. If this is another way, God bless us, right? Stephanie Carson, tell us the website one more time.
Absolutely. So it's holistic therapy and wellness.com. I was going to give you my company's name, and that's holistic with a W. Website is the great place to start, but if not, you can call my office, which is 909-364-1104, or shoot me an email at stephmft@verizon.net.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Have a fantastic day, and thank you for the new techniques. Have a good one. Bye.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.